So I thought for this episode we'd have a quick look around this. This is a JVC HRS-5955 and it's one of the later VHS decks, and it does many things, including and not limited to NTSC playback. Never the same colour, that's what it actually stands for. Not National Television Standards something or other. Super VHS, Hi-Fi, NTSC playback. But the big one is SVHS. I think that's, I'm not sure, that might be SVHS playback only? Could be recording as well, who knows, but it actually does NTSC playback on a PAL set, which that's actually pretty impressive because it's got PAL decoder built in, so that could be quite a useful deck. The remote control is pretty comprehensive, to be honest. No interesting cool innovations such as the LCD screen at the top, which allows you to program on the remote control and then send it to the video recorder, which you saw in a lot of stuff, JVC kit included, from the late 80s. That's because a lot of the intuitive interface moved to an on-screen display on the television set. So everything that you would have wanted to have done would have been over on the TV anyway. So this actually means that this could be quite a useful box if you wanted to pass through, say, an NTSC Laserdisc through to a PAL television that doesn't have NTSC capabilities. Now, an interesting fact, I discovered many years ago that certain Sony sets from about 1985 onwards will play in colour, or will display in colour, NTSC inputs. So I had a Panasonic, which I've got to work on at some point, but I was playing an NTSC cassette through it onto an old Sony KV21XLTU through RF, and I was really surprised that the picture came up in colour and worked as it should. So yeah, that was a bit of a surprise, that one. Back to this one, there's two SCART sockets on the back. There is an audio out, phono audio out, and obviously your standard RF connections. The SCART sockets, you've got one for in, another which is a combined in-out, which is quite handy. Don't think I can date this one easily unless I check the model number. It's made in Germany. Inside, it's pretty of its time, to be honest with you. In fact, almost completely of its time. Pretty much everything is on this one board underneath. And you know what? It looks like if you had the relevant componentry, you could also add CCAM to that list as well. So NTSC, CCAM and PAL. Power supply is probably the only bit that is almost user serviceable, which is quite handy because that's where the majority of problems actually occur. I think that little four-legged affair is the bridge rectifier. You can see it's actually spanning the primary side and the secondary side, so that would make sense. And then you've got over here this riser board, which I'm not sure what it's for. Sub PWB, whatever that is. And then you've got the RF can over there. Head-wise, pretty of its time. Standard, probably 6 heads, 2 long play, 2 for standard play, 2 for audio. And I'll be honest, not really much else to write home about in there. It's all very simple, all very of its time. And it's this sort of machine that would actually make a good workhorse if you wanted to play back VHS cassettes on a regular basis, not just, you know, once in a while, in which case I tend to use decks which are a lot older and more aesthetically interesting than this. But certainly this is a good one if you wanted to just play back cassettes and not have to worry about ever taking the lid off of it to do anything with it. And also, if you're so inclined to still do so, time shift recordings, not that you could do much of that these days, but you might be able to say, I don't know, set a timer going to record or archive off of a skybox, or even not set a timer for that, just archive off of the skybox onto here, onto VHS cassette. Not sure why you'd want to do that, but it's the sort of thing that I would do for fun. And there you go. So it's not really much about it, because by this sort of time all of the major components had been integrated into individual microchips. There was no non-discrete components in this anymore. A lot of it was all sort of discrete onboard components, which is brilliant from a manufacturing perspective, but from a servicing perspective it does mean that if you happen to have a problem, it's pretty much going to be a replacement of that whole board. You can't just service the individual section that's causing you the trouble. Part exception to that might be that power supply. That still looks like you could actually do some work on it. And I've got to be honest, with machines of this era, it's usually the power supply that will be causing you problems. Now, I did have another modern JVC deck, which I think was S-VHS playback only, rather than giving you full S-VHS record and playback capability. But I ended up having to dispose of it because I couldn't get any kind of playback using the DVD function, audio playback that is. So there was actually a problem with the decoder circuitry, I think. And because it's all discrete components and I don't have the equipment to desolder or resolder discrete componentry, that was it. That was effectively that deck written off. So I repaired the power supply, which got it working, which obviously highlighted that particular problem, and the rest of it had to go into the bin, unfortunately. So I took it to the local recycling centre. I did obviously offer it out prior to that, because it had quite a good IDE format 5¼ inch DVD drive, DVD recorder, but yeah, nobody wanted it, so off it went. I wasn't too sad to see it go. Made an interesting video and sort of highlighted the really the sort of problems that you get with newer decks, that the fact that there could be one simple fault and that's it, they are written off. I mean, with older decks, even the Philips I was working on in the last video, with older decks you do have, you know, the opportunity to try and repair them. There is that possibility that you might actually be able to get it working. But with the newer decks, there isn't really that opportunity. Once something has gone, unless you've got the relevant soldering station to be able to do it, that's it. That's your lot, unfortunately. Oh, that's from the match line, incidentally. That's the one I broke, or the one that just came apart in my hands. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, take care, and see you next time.